Plastic as far as the eye can see, scattered by wind and rain. Each year, the city of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso produces 20,000 tons of plastic trash. For humans, it's dirty and dangerous. For animals, it's deadly. 1/3 of all the livestock that die here each year choke to death on plastic the animals mistake for food. It is the women of Ouagadougou who are turning the plastic plague into prosperity. This starts with the plastic pickers. Each morning, Salamata Yanogo and her friends pick over the piles of plastic, looking for pickings they can sell to Burkina Faso's first plastic recycling center.
If I collect a lot over 2 weeks, I can make 1,500 francs.
That's just over €2, a very modest yet essential income for Ouagadougou's poorest people. 2,000 people in the area recycle plastic. Salamata and her friends bring their pickings here to the Plastic Waste Recycling Center. The center was founded by Andrea Micconi, an Italian environmental scientist working for an NGO here. After training at the Turin International Training Center of the International Labour Organization, Andrea organized the recycling center, which is entirely operated by the women of Ouagadougou. Many of the workers come from the poorest sections of the city. These women have gained experience in conserving, sorting, and recognizing value. Each of the 30 women at the center work 40 hours a week, earning about €50 a month. That's almost double of what a teacher earns here. Margot Kabore is president of the Center's Association of Women.
We have to spread the word about the center so that people bring plastic waste here. We work hard cleaning and sorting the plastic, recycling 4 to 5 tons every month, so we can cover our salary and maintenance costs.
Women are involved in every aspect of the recycling process. First, the plastic is washed by hand. Then it is sorted by color and by type. The center provides gloves, aprons, and other protective gear for the women workers. The plastic is then put into machines which grind it down to granules, which are then bagged and sold to local industry at half the price of imported plastic. So far, the center has sold 50 tons of recycled plastic, worth $40,000. Local companies mold the recycled granules into chairs, plastic tubing, and even affordable ruler kits for local schools. The recycled plastic rulers are cheaper than imported ones, and the school kids are proud that they were made in their own town.
Produit en plastique 100% recyclé, réalisé à Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
Students go on field trips to the recycling center to see firsthand where their rulers came from. It helps them understand more about the impact of environmental pollution and the important role played by the women at the recycling center.
The world needs greener economies everywhere, and green jobs are policies and measures that take care of the environment are a way towards development, and they are a way of creating decent jobs for all kinds of people. This applies to a whole range of sectors, from recycling to renewable energy to clean transport to reforestation and many others. And it offers opportunities for workers across the range from relatively unskilled to highly trained, academically trained people.
For the women who collect and sell plastic waste to the center, to the women who work there recycling, there is a sense of pride and accomplishment.
I'm very lucky because in Burkina Faso, it's not everyone who can get a job like this.
Thanks to the women of the recycling center, today there isn't as much plastic trash blowing around Ouagadougou. The area's livestock is safer. Families have a new way of making a dependable income. and the pride in what the women of Ouagadougou have achieved grows deeper every day.
Welcome back to the United Nations face-to-face video discussions. We're broadcasting live from the United Nations Secretariat in New York. We've heard some fascinating and some really powerful ideas from our guests, and the personal experience about promoting youth employment and, of course, preparing youth for the future. Our dialogue now is going to focus around driving change through the green economy and creating a sustainable future. And this is in lead up to the Rio Plus 20 discussions, which will happen with the international community in June. Green jobs and the promise of a greener, sustainable future has been an issue for the United Nations, even predating Agenda 21 at the first Rio conference. The ILO has focused on a green jobs program, on transforming economies, entrepreneurs, and the workplace, and creating new opportunities, not just transforming brown jobs into green jobs, but creating new and innovative ideas. It's my pleasure now to introduce our new panelists, and firstly, Andrew Fiddaman. Andrew is the Managing Director of the Prince's Youth Business International. YBI is a global network of independent nonprofit initiatives and helps young people start and grow their businesses and create employment. Welcome.
Thank you.
Our second guest is Luis Viguria. Luis is the Chief Executive Officer of Young America's Business Trust out of the Organization of American States. The Young Americans Business Trust is a catalyst for young entrepreneurs in the Americas and offers tools, skills, and networks to the young entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us, Luis.
Thank you, sir.
What we'd like to focus on is the climate change, environmental degradation, what this means to the international community, what opportunities is that creating for the green economy. We talk about the transition to a low carbon economy, a just transition, because there will be winners and there will be losers. We want to look at how do we mitigate those effects, and how do we prepare and train not only workers but entrepreneurs for this new green economy. There are the issues, of course, of the green jobs, if it can actually help with poverty reduction. I think that's an important part, especially in rural areas where we still have many people who are suffering with job loss anyway. So what I'd like to do, Andrew, now is just to speak to you a little bit about an initiative that YBI has, which is called the Global Entrepreneurship Week and the Entrepreneur of the Year competition. And how is that shifting a focus of employment opportunities for young people?
Extremely good and extremely important questions. And I think one of the things that's changing is we're finding, certainly in the 10, 12 years that YBI has been in existence, working in 34 countries, as you've said, around the world, helping young people, is we're finding young people themselves are turning around and saying, we need to pay more attention to the world in which we live. So they themselves are often the people who are stimulating the ideas of how can I become involved in the green economy? How can I look at some of these issues? So increasingly we are finding the young people turning around and saying, I want to start my own business, I want to succeed, but I also want to help the communities. And one of the best ways in which I can help those communities is by developing something that supports natural capitalism, the world in which we work. So for us, we're involved in Global Entrepreneurship Week, along with 10 of our other countries, where we act as national hosts. And what we're finding in each one of those is the young people are turning around and saying, yes, I might want to start a commercial venture, but it must have an environmental, it must have a social side to it. In many cases, those businesses themselves are environmentally focused. They might be looking at sustainable energy. They might be looking at renewable energy. They might be looking at improving agriculture or improving distribution systems. So I think it's the young people themselves who are turning around and saying, we want to become more involved. And as a result of that, the education process, slowly, sadly, is getting on to that. It's turning around and saying, perhaps we ought to move away from teaching traditional skills, turning around and saying, what are the new opportunities? What are the new ventures that we should be looking at? And the whole area of sustainability, of economic, social and environmental growth and awareness is coming out of that.
Excellent. I think the issue of skills development and preparing young entrepreneurs and young workers for the 21st century, I think that this is a common theme. And do you find that the education institutions are responsive to this? Are they looking to make those changes?
I think they are. I think it's a challenge in many countries because of budgetary constraints and these sorts of things. But one of the definitions of entrepreneurs is people who are turning around and saying, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the challenges, I can succeed. We start about 8,500 young people in business last year around the world. Those young people are already employing tens of thousands of others. And in many cases, it's because they're turning around and saying, I need to have goods, products or services that meet local needs and local issues. And when we've got times where employment in traditional business is static or declining, perhaps government employment static or declining, all the employment growth in virtually every country around the world is coming out of small, medium-sized enterprises. And those small, medium-sized enterprises need entrepreneurs to start them. And because of this idea of turning around and saying, I want to look at something that's going to provide social growth, environmental awareness, that's where all these issues are coming out. So as I say, tremendous amount coming in, rural agriculture, in terms of rural energy development, a lot of business opportunities.
Excellent. And Luis, what contribution are the Young America's Business Trust out of the OAS in the area of green entrepreneurship doing? And what is the connection to partnerships? Are you developing partnerships with other groups?
Well, actually, it goes all the way to what actually YBT does, which is, as you know, we are part of the OAS, the Organization of American States, and we work with 34 countries. We work with governments, we work with private sectors, we work with like civil society institutions, and also with young people. Something we realized at the beginning is, young people need a job, we need to help them create those jobs, but something we also find out is they already have the environmental conscious, they're already doing it. We sometimes don't need to explain it to them because they know it, because they live it. They live day a day, the different issues that the climate change is happening, and they know that if they don't do something, then later it's not gonna be useful anymore. The problem here, and the contribution that YBT does with the OAS is empowering them. It's not about building capacity anymore because there are a lot of local institutions doing that. It's about taking them to the next level because young entrepreneurs are doing things, but those let's say startup businesses or initial projects, they need to grow. They need to create employment. They need to be shown as a best practice. And that's something YBT does. We connect young people with other young people from different scenarios and realities. Something like Global Entrepreneurship Week does as well. But something we do is we make them believe. Because in our region, Latin America and the Caribbean, we're basically focused. People sometimes, young people lose the faith on institutions, lose their faith on governments, they lose their faith on themselves. They don't think they're capable to do something that is world quality. Something we need to put on the table in their mindsets is just they develop high quality products, high quality projects. They are doing something that have impact, that can create employment, but they don't believe in themselves. Sometimes because they don't see it, like they don't have a scenario to showcase it. What we did is we opened a space at the West General Assembly. 34 countries get together, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, decision makers, and they talk with the kids, they talk with entrepreneurs. They actually identify what they're doing and they take into other realities. We connected with the Summit of the Americas. What we do at the Summit of the Americas, they put what young people are doing as a priority in the countries at the level of head of states. So if sometimes institutions do activities and doesn't have continuity because it doesn't have resources or a justification from the government to do it, we do that. So we complement local initiatives, we reinforce young people, we empower them, we showcase them, we create a network, we promote entrepreneurs, but responsible entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs that take care of the environment. They know it already. Sometimes, that's the other problem. Sometimes they don't know they're doing it. And that's our job to actually make them identify that they're already doing the investment. They need to capitalize from that. And that's one of the key issues we try to work in YBT.
When you mentioned that the young people sometimes become disenfranchised, they become concern that people are not listening to them, that there's no opportunity or room for them to grow. I mean, how are you addressing that at the local level with young entrepreneurs? As you say, they come with a consciousness, they come with skill sets, but they feel that maybe things are stacked against them. So the ILO's Director General had asked for a new paradigm of development, a new paradigm of job growth, of decent work for all men and women. Can you speak a little bit to those issues?
Yeah. No, actually, with ILO, we're connecting with the different activities they're doing in the local level. And at the end, it's about opening the door for the young people. They don't have access to that space. Sometimes I think they don't have credibility. And that credibility is vital when they try to even look for funding to start implementing their actions. Because nobody trusts them. Too risky, too expensive, they say. Nobody tried. So that's something we are trying to advocate here, is young people, young entrepreneurs deserve the support, but they didn't have the chance. Institutions get together, they do a lot of meetings, but who actually go to the next level with those results? Governments, sometimes we need to work on that. Financial institutions, they're still thinking, they haven't done it. So maybe our role, ILO, IYF, or the International Youth Foundation, YBT per se, that's our role right now. We need to take our young entrepreneurs hand to hand and showcase them, because that's the way to make the difference. It's not about what young people can do, it's about what young people are already doing it and institutions don't know. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're trying to promote.
Right. And Andrew, on that same point, what are you seeing in the people that you're working with?
I think there is this great awareness. I think sometimes we become our own worst enemies. We turn around and say to young people, have you ever thought about becoming an entrepreneur? And it perhaps has connotations of, I'd like to start my own business, but I could never be Bill Gates. The stories, as Luis was saying, the stories we need to tell are, here is somebody who went to the same school, lived in the same village, lived in the same street, dropped out at the same time, who has started a successful business. And those are the stories we need to tell. So for us, within YBI, each year we hold an Entrepreneur of the Year competition. And one of the most heavily fought, if you like, sort of parts of that competition is the Environmental Entrepreneur of the Year. And those can be people who are turning around and looking at waste reclamation, at improving qualities of water, looking at alternative energy, looking at ways of mitigating noise pollution. If we can turn around and give these ideas, I think that's the important thing. You asked me earlier about the education systems, and yes, there are challenges within those. There is perhaps in some countries a temptation to say, we have taught it this way for the last 20 years, so let's teach it this way for the next 20 years. Rather than perhaps talking about and going in partnership with business and with other organizations and saying, what are the needs that you think you are going to have in the next 5 years? Or what are the skill sets you think young people are going to need in the next 5 or 10 years? And how do we prepare people for those issues? And that's where I think this whole area of environmental, self-employment, new business development are the important things. And from our side, within YBI, what we try to do is find ways in which we can promote that, promote sustainable businesses. Our president is Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, who has always had a very strong sustainability agenda, and quite rightly. And this is something that we turn around and say, we need to find ways in which we can encourage young people to address the issues that they see around them in their day-to-day existence and they see looming on the horizon. So that's the important thing for us.
I think as we're winding up here, just if I can ask you to sort of complete the sentence to say, green jobs can. Luis, from your exposure to people in your region and beyond, how would you fill that in? Green jobs can?
Green jobs can make the difference. We need to continue supporting it.
Excellent. Andrew?
Make a real difference to individuals, to communities, and to global development, and produce some very profitable businesses, taking advantage of new ideas, new technologies, and new options and opportunities.
All right, Andrew, Luis, thank you very much for sharing your insights and experiences. And I think this is probably the beginning of a longer discussion on green jobs and the transition to a low-carbon economy and providing decent work opportunities for these very innovative and young entrepreneurs who are starting to look at new models and taking encouragement from the experiences that you're giving them. And I wish you great success in your work. We're going to take a short break now for a final video before we have our last panel. And please stay tuned with us, and we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you.